Evil laughter! All right, ladies and gentlemen, I finally have it. I have obtained the Medusa device. Oh yes, and with this device I shall finally carry out my master plan, which I've totally had since the very beginning. I will use this Medusa to turn everybody on the planet Earth into a stone statue, exactly like Barry. It'll be alright, everybody. We'll soon be all one with the brick. Alright, well, no use in just waiting around. 200 billion meters, 10 seconds. Well, we had a good run, everybody. It was all fun, you know. Remember that one time I made a One Piece video about ice cream flavors? That was a blast. Good times. And oh, who could forget that time I made a video about all the Bankais in Bleach? I would make another one of those if it wasn't for the fact we were all going to be stone statues. Well, flesh and blood is overrated, you know what I'm saying? Okay, it's been over 10 seconds now. Oh. Sorry, my, this is actually a, like a puzzle thing, you know, like one of those things you gotta, like, you know, fit the pieces out of and stuff. Not really a Medusa device, Oh my, how embarrassing. Okay, so, I guess we'll just hold off on that. If anybody sees a Medusa device lying around, could you send me that? I might need that for something. Anyway, hi everyone, how are you doing? Tekking and Barry here. Today to talk about the recent chapter of Dr. Stone. I don't remember the number, but it's this one right here, okay. And, that's fair to say that I'm talking about this one because it looks like in the next chapter, probably, we are going to finally find out the identity of the Y-Man! Y-Man! Why? Okay, so I usually don't talk about Dr. Stone chapters, you know. What I do is I wait until the end of the arc and just do like a whole arc recap. Although I gotta say, on the week-by-week basis, I'm usually very tempted to talk about it because I love this story. Let's just get that out of the way right now. If you don't know, or if you've never seen a Dr. Stone video from me before, I am in love with this story, okay? It is probably going to end this year from everything I've been seeing, so yeah. But, you know, I think the ending's gonna be pretty good. Plus, we have the anime. Season 3, I think it was announced to come out next year in 2023, so we can look forward to that. Not really sure how many anime seasons they're going to be. I'm assuming season 3 is going to cover the construction of the boat, the Perseus, and then the entire island arc. But now I'm wondering, because if Dr. Stone does end this year, season 3 might just include the boat plus the island, and then they could probably get through the America arc, because the America arc is really not that big and not that long, and then you could just end it with the cliffhanger of Senku's group escaping to South America, and then season 4 could be just the rest of the story, honestly. You know, the South America arc, because after South America and after the world is repetrified the second time and then Suika saves everybody, after that, this story hits the gas pedal fast, okay? And that's where we're at right now. So before we get to the reveal in the last chapter with Senku, Stanley, and Kohaku, and Ryusui as well, I'm glad he made it. I'm glad Ryusui got to the moon as well. Before we get to that and then the identity of Y-Man, let's just talk about the recent arc, you know, the last few dozen chapters and everything, and where we're at right now in the story. Probably the biggest criticism I see is that of pacing, okay? Because the pacing of Dr. Stone really does amp up quite a bit. Now, I understand why a lot of people might be a little bit, like, upset about that, because here's the thing. I have seen plenty of, you know, like not just manga, but like anime, TV shows, you know, get completely screwed over when it goes to pacing, okay? When you have like a certain set pace for most of a show, and then out of nowhere, boom, the pacing just accelerates. You feel kind of like you get like a whiplash effect, okay? And look no further than the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones for that. I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything about that show, but seasons 1 through 6 of Game of Thrones, when they were still following the novels, follow a very set pace. So like a character leaving this one place takes a while to get him to the next place because he has to travel, right? So yeah, that's how it works. But then seasons 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones, whoosh! I mean, they just go. I mean, you'll have a character in one place, and then in the same episode, they'll jump around to like 2 other places. And normally it would take like episodes in, you know, for them to get there, but now it's like all over the place, and they're just really hitting the gas pedal, okay? But the thing about Dr. Stone, and the reason why I think it works here, is because it makes sense, and it's the natural progression of science which leads to this, like, sped up momentum, okay? Also the fact of just the state of the world changing. Like, one example I can give, there's plenty of examples you can give. I mean, they literally took years and years and years to build a functional rocket, and they just skipped over most of those years, okay? But one of the big things was the internet, all right? So they have the internet in Dr. Stone now, which is like a crazy thing. You know, when I started reading this, you know, we literally start in the Stone world, and now it's like, yeah, the internet's back up and running. I mean, it's pretty shitty dial-up, to be honest with you, but they have the internet again. They have, like, Zoom meetings and everything, right? And you're like, how did that happen? And it's like, well, it pretty much happened in one chapter. Or rather, the internet being established happened in one chapter, but the groundwork for all of that took years of the story, right? I want you to remember back at the beginning of Dr. Stone during the Ishigami Village arc, okay? It was right around the time when they developed the water wheel. That might have been more in the Stone Wars arc, but whatever. They developed the water wheel, and then it was like Ginro and Kinro were so happy because it's like, you mean we don't have to push the, you know, the turbines anymore to generate electricity? And Senku's like, no, you don't. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. And Senku's like, that's the amazing thing about science. You know, it's when science creates something, it makes it easier for humans. Like, you're building upon the foundation. So the more science we have building up the world, the faster things get done. That's why a couple of chapters ago, right before we got into the thick of the space arc, you know, Senku was like, let's just have a last minute crafting session chapter. You know, what do you guys want? And they're like, a washing machine. It's like, yeah, that's pretty much impossible at the beginning of the story, but now it's like we have all the components. We have everything. Everything's back up and running again. I can just make a washing machine. It's not hard, right? Yeah, that's how it goes. Or rather, every component that goes into the washing machine, we've already addressed at this point. So yeah, we can skip over the time it takes for Kaseki to make the materials because he already knows how to make the materials, okay? That's just how it goes, right? But the thing about the internet was, like, they basically used cables. They ran giant cables under the ocean connecting the continents of the world, undersea cables, in order to, you know, have the internet. And you're sitting there thinking, like, oh my god, how long would that have taken? Now, also keep in mind, in Dr. Stone, we have, like, essentially superhumans from what we're working with in our world. And not just superhumans in the act of, like, Tsukasa and Hyoga, where they can, like, punch people, like, you know, freaking, you know, Tsukasa can punch out a lion, which I was gonna do a video about that. I remember a while ago on Twitter, I posted a thing about Tsukasa and, like, somebody to calculate exactly how strong, how much force had to be in that punch to KO a lion, to kill it, and the answers were just absurd. So I want to do a video calculating, like, what the upper limit of the power level of the characters of Dr. Stone are, but whatever. So, you know, there's superhumans like that, and there's also superhumans like Yuzuriha that can, like, make things like, oh, she's part of the craft club in high school, that's why she can do all this crazy stuff, pieced back together complicated, you know, statues of people, and, like, wicked fast pace, right? So, but when you think about it, it's like, yeah, it would have taken an absurdly long time for them to make all the cables long enough to literally cover the entire planet. It would have taken them months, years to do that. But they have all the material to do that, and there's no immediate threat. I mean, Y-Man is a threat, but there's no immediate threat from, like, their own groups anymore, okay? Because the internet's back up and running, and I think it was Ryusui that even said that. It's just like, because the internet's back up and the world has been revived to that point, and scientists and everybody all over the planet is back up and rolling again, the whole world domination thing that Zeno wanted to do, that's pretty much a non-starter at this point, so they don't have to worry about that. I still feel like if this actually happened, there would be somebody in some nation that would be kind of like a dictator that would try to rally everybody together to listen to them, not so much Senku and Zeno. There might be some dissension in the ranks, but for the sake of moving along with this story, you know, Inagaki just chooses to be like, yeah, that's not happening. It's just everybody on the planet's getting along for this one singular purpose to take down Y-Man. I actually find that the most unbelievable thing, because even if there's, like, a common threat, it's like, we have to defeat Y-Man. You know, there would be somebody somewhere on the planet that has been revived that would be like, hey, how do we even know this Y-Man even exists? Senku might be trying to use it to make us all work for him. I actually want to build my own nation, and everybody should listen to me. You know there would be some jack-off like that in the Dr. Stone universe, right? But there isn't, so let's just continue, right? But yeah, it's taking years to to get this stuff done, but we can flash through it in a single chapter because everything's been established up until this point. Like, do you really want to see them sit around, make a cable for 6 chapters, or how many chapters it takes, like, to make the cable? And it's like, okay, 3 years went by. I actually have no idea how old the Dr. Stone characters are now, because ever since the second petrification, everybody got back. That was 7 years when Suika saved everybody. I don't know how many years have gone by at this point. I think we might have actually seen a calendar in one of the most recent chapters, but it's been a long time now. Senku might easily be in his late 20s, early 30s right now. I don't know if he's that old, but he's up there. Okay. So that's my feeling for the pacing. I just feel like it's not like Game of Thrones. It's not like some other story where they're hitting the gas pedal just because they have to get the story done quick. It's like, look, you know, we can either sit around for chapters and chapters showing us things we've already seen, or we can get to the meat of this, or the cheese of this, and head to the moon! So let's just head to the moon already, right? Also, they had to test a lot of those damn rockets, because a lot of them blew up upon launching off. So, yeah, I mean, like, yeah, a rocket blew up, you gotta build another one. That rocket blew up, gotta build another one. Do you want to see all of that? All right. So they arrived on the moon, and it's just such a surreal moment. It's like that moment when you start reading the series, and it's like Senku at the very beginning of the series was like, I will, you know, revive all of humanity, I'll save everybody, and we'll get back to the point where we can travel to the moon, just like our forebearers did, okay? And so finally seeing the chapter where they blast off, we had a few chapters with the docking and everything, Ryusui showing up and everything like that. By the way, there's a little big thing about Ryusui as well, because we had that big emotional chapter where Ryusui was like, you know, oh, I guess I can't go because obviously Stanley is the better pilot. Stanley's the better pirate than me, Ryusui, arg! You know, it's like, no, I think Ryusui would be the better pirate, but Stanley is the better pilot, okay? And in the very next chapter, or one of the very next chapters, Ryusui shows up, like he's stowed away on one of the docking mechanisms, and now they're all together in space, and a lot of people were maybe upset about that, like that kind of like throws off like the tone of it, but I don't. I think that fits very well with Ryusui's character, because Ryusui, think about it, like, Ryusui admits that he's like, okay, Stanley's the better pilot, he has to go, all right? But also, he's still Ryusui, and he's going to be like, all right, that was the right move, but screw it. I still want to go to space. I'm doing it. I don't care. That's Ryusui's character in a nutshell. You know, he's never happy with that kind of stuff, so makes sense to me. Anyways, we had a cool few chapters like that, and now last chapter, they're on the moon. They literally land on the moon. They got their cool spacesuits and everything. They got their rover. They see the original Apollo 11 landing site, which, by the way, that itself is kind of important because that implies that the Y-Man set up his, like, base of operations, whatever it's going to turn out to be, very, very close to Apollo 11's landing site. I feel like that's not going to be a coincidence. The final villain of this story may be Neil Armstrong. No, Buzz Aldrin. It was Buzz Aldrin the whole time. Maybe the other guy. Who was the other guy? Michael something. Who was the other guy? Hold on, I gotta look it up. You always forget about the other guy. I know his name is Michael, but I forget what his last name was. Michael Collins, that was his name, Michael Collins. So the reason nobody ever remembers him is because he didn't actually walk on the moon. Neil was the first person to walk on the moon, and then Buzz was the second, but Michael was like, he stayed in the capsule the entire time, all right? So he never got a chance to walk on the moon, but he still was one of the 3 guys to first land on the moon, so I feel like he deserves some recognition. He actually passed away in April of last year. He lived until like his 90s. But yeah, anyway, okay. So it's so close to that landing site. We even see the flag that Neil, you know, planted originally. It's been sun bleached to the point where it's pretty much all white at this point, but it's pretty cool. It's still there. I mean, it makes sense that it would still be there, right? Okay, sorry about that. So I filmed the first half of this video like 3 days ago, but then there was like an audio glitch halfway through it. It was really weird because it made my voice sound like a robot, like there was this weird double layered effect on my voice. So it's weird, I was talking about like Dr. Stone and like AIs and stuff, and then like halfway through the video I turned into a robot. So, alright, so where did I leave off? Right, okay. The basic idea is that they have the Medusa device inside of a capsule now, okay? Not a vacuum capsule, it's a capsule filled with air, because obviously you can't activate the Medusa device, in the vacuum of space. Senku can't just take off his helmet and be like, 10 meters, 1 second or whatever, right? So they have this little container with a speaker grill inside of the container, and there's like a little, like a thing that you can spin it, so it's like on or off, so it's like receiving a signal, not receiving a signal, right? And so Kohaku is the one that has it, and the idea is that they're going to use it, worst case scenario, as a weapon. So the idea is to find Y-Man, and because Senku, of course, is adverse to violence and stuff, the idea is not like just shoot Y-Man in the head or something. The idea is like, okay, if we do find Y-Man and he is like a normal human being or whatever, not an AI, which, by the way, the implication in this chapter, I mean, it still might be an AI, like an AI might be part of this, but the implication definitely seems to be it's an actual human being that just went to the moon somehow, built a home base up there once again somehow, and then rained down all the petrification devices on the planet Earth, okay? And there might be an AI involved with that, maybe to keep it running for like thousands of years. It might be a situation where like a human scientist went to the moon, built a base, and then had like the AI run the place while maybe Y-Man himself was petrified. Like he petrifies the entire planet, and then he's like, okay, I will now petrify myself, and I'll have this AI, these computers, run so as soon as they detect any radio signals coming off of the Earth, that means humanity is revived, then I'll set it so that I am revived on the moon, and then I can repetrify the planet. And they'll do this as many times as they need to, so Y-Man is dead set on humanity staying petrified forever, right? So anyway, they have this capsule, right? Kohaku has it. And they're traveling along the moon's surface. There's this really cool scene where they're just in the rover, just driving along the moon's surface. And then all of a sudden, you just hear this really creepy transmission of just like, hello there, Kohaku. Would you please unseal the Medusa canister, please? And it's Senku's voice. And once again, they're not talking normally. They're communicating over, radio signals and stuff. And so Kohaku does not actually see Senku's face when he says this, so she just hears his voice in her headset, and she's like, oh, Senku, are you sure you want me to do that right here and now? And Senku's like, yes, please do it right away. And Kohaku's like, all right, that's a little unusual for you to say please and be so formal, but okay, I'll do it. And so she begins to unseal the canister, but then Stanley stops her and like, hey, whoa, Kohaku, what are you doing? Senku didn't say a word. And Kohaku's like, what? And everyone's like, Nani? And then all of a sudden you just hear the creepy voice of the Y-Man hijacking the signal using Senku's voice, like a synthetic voice, being like, thank you so much for that. And so the Medusa activates. Now, thankfully, because of Kohaku's mighty throwing arm, she takes the canister, throws it, and because, they're on the moon, it's 1/6 Earth's gravity, and there's no air resistance or anything, so she chucks that thing. It flies through the air, and it does activate. So she did turn it to the point where it turned on, and the speaker activated, and then she chucked it, and then it activates in the sky. Is the sky above the moon still called the sky? Because the sky is like an Earth thing. She chucks it, okay, into the upper atmosphere of the moon or whatever, but the moon doesn't have an atmosphere. Whatever, she throws it really fucking hard, okay? And it activates. So a couple of things with that. So Stanley and Senku and Kohaku, they avoid the wave. They don't get petrified. But a couple of things I wanted to bring up here. Okay, so number one, it's a little unusual that Senku did not plan for this, because Senku would know that the only way they're going to be able to communicate with each other on the moon is through radio signals, okay? Because, you can't speak in space. So Senku would also be aware that Y-Man is capable of using radio signals, and he's also aware that Y-Man is capable of synthesizing his voice. Okay? So you'd think Senku would have thought of, like, what if Y-Man hijacks our signal and, makes us think that we're talking when we're not? It just seems like he should have thought of that, and they should have developed some kind of code word or something, especially involving the Medusa device. Maybe not with every little thing, but if there's anything that involves the Medusa, there's like a code word or something, or at the very least, like, if I say anything involving the Medusa, you have to double check and confirm with me first. Like, even if I'm the one that says, Kohaku, please open up the capsule, Kohaku should be like, okay, before I do anything, you need to confirm that with me, or you need to give me some, like, code word, or at least let me see you moving your mouth as you're saying these words, okay? So it's a little weird Senku didn't plan for that, or Zeno as well. They both should have known that. Also, I wanted to bring up something interesting. I believe this is the first time that that Y-Man uses the term Medusa. Because Medusa was the name of the device that Senku and the science group gave it, okay? This is not like the actual name of this device. They call it the Medusa device, okay? So here's Y-Man synthesizing Senku's voice, not just using his voice like an AI and like, voice reproduction, but also simulating the way they refer to the device. So it could be an actual human that was just listening in on all the radio conversations, and it's like, oh, they're calling it the Medusa device, and that's why they called it that. Or it could just be a very intelligent AI that could pick up that, like, they're referring to this as the Medusa device, so I need to do it as well. It's not exactly perfect, though, and that's what makes me think this is an AI. It's because the way that Senku speaks, he could not nail that exactly. And I feel like if it was an actual person listening to their conversations, the actual person would know how Senku speaks, and like he's speaking in a very formal way right here, which is not the way Senku talks. So it's like the AI is doing this and replicating Senku's voice, but it's like not perfect. But I just wanted to bring that up. The last thing I wanted to mention is that I thought it was a little strange that Y-Man used like a set range that was that wide. Like, okay, so we see the blast of the petrification device, and it's big. It's really big, okay? And so, when Kohaku chucks it, I want to say it's at least a few hundred yards, a few hundred meters. It's just that because she throws it so damn fast, and there's no resistance, then it blasts off, way above them, okay? So why did not Y-Man say something like, instead of just like, it looks like, I don't know, 100 meters or something, why didn't Y-Man just do like 1,000 meters 1 second? Because here's the thing. I'm thinking they're very close to Y-Man's base. They are very close to his base. We see it at the end of the chapter, that dark spot on the moon. It's like weird black tendrils like approaching and encroaching on the moon's surface, right? And so what if Y-Man is a person and he didn't want to like cover the whole range of the moon? If it was just a robot, then who cares? If it was just an AI, you know what I'm saying? Because if it was just an AI, if there was no reason to like limit the distance of it, why go with that specific distance? And why give it enough time for Kohaku to chuck it? It seemed longer than a second. Maybe it wasn't, but it seemed like it was like the orders seemed to be like 100 meters, 5-10 seconds, something like that. Like that was the range. So that just seemed like to give them enough time to chuck the thing, and the range wasn't large enough to cover them. So that makes me think, because they're so close to Y-Man's base, that Y-Man doesn't want to be petrified himself, so he couldn't set the range too large. It couldn't cover the entire moon, because then he would be petrified as well. So that's something there. So then we get to the last scene of the chapter, and I'm just going to quote Senku's words verbatim here, because this is when he figures out the mystery. This is when he discovers, purportedly, who Y-Man is the whole time. So they see the dark spot of the moon, these like weird tendrils, and he's like, so this is what's behind that ominous dark stain we spotted. I get it. Finally, it's all coming together, the whole mystery. The perpetrator behind that flash of light that turned humanity to stone thousands of years ago. All along, this whole time, closer than we knew, Y-Man was you! You, specifically, the person watching this video, you were Y-Man! Why did you do it, Y-Man? Why did you petrify the earth? I was trying to do that at the beginning of this video, but why? Okay, so let's look at a few of the reactions here, because with the last page of this chapter, it's so epic. We get Senku looking like with his like grin, and like he looks just straight up evil, like Senku does whenever he gets excited. So he's like 10 billion% get excited. Why, man, was you? But we also see shots of everybody else. We see shots of Taiju and Yuzuriha, and they're all terrified. Both of them, they're like sweat dripping down their face, like a cold sweat. They're freaking out. Ryusui is there in the capsule. He's freaking out. Gen is freaking out. We see Kaseki and Ukyo. They're freaking out. Zeno. I want to focus on Zeno's reaction here, because this is something very interesting. Zeno is a scientist as well, and he's usually the one next to Senku that'll be like the most calm and collected in these kind of situations, right? So Senku's reaction is like, I know who it is. Zeno's reaction is like, holy shit. That's his reaction. He's not sweating like the other ones are, but his eyes are wide as saucers, and he's like, what the shit? You know, like, that's his reaction. So the fact that this is the reaction that Zeno warranted, like, I don't know if it was like Senku said who it was, and these are the reactions from the science group that learned it, or if it's like Zeno was like on the same page as Senku was, where it's like Taiju, Yuzuriha, Ryusui, Gen, they're all waiting for Senku to elaborate on who it is. Like, they don't know who it is yet, but they're like, oh my god, this is it. Senku cracked the mystery. Who is it? And they're like nervous because of that. But Zeno's the one that figured it out alongside Senku. Like, Senku connected the dots the same time Zeno did, and he's like, oh, it can't be that person, can it? And then that's the end of the chapter. So I have a list here of possibilities. The first thing I wanted to say before we go any further with this is, and I should have mentioned this earlier in the video, but here we are. It's not Rei. It's not Rei. This is the Dr. Stone reboot, Byakuya. As if in anticipation of this, Inagaki actually posted on his Twitter, like, as soon as this chapter was released, chapter 227, he released a tweet that was like, just to remind everybody that this reboot Byakuya is a side story. It's a Gaiden. It's a what if. It did not actually happen in the Dr. Stone universe, in the context of the manga that he's writing, the main story. And if you have Dr. Stone reboot Byakuya, go grab it off your shelf if you have it. Let's do a little read along here. Okay, does everybody have their copy of Dr. Stone reboot Byakuya? All right, everybody? All right, well, open up to the first page right here, the first page, and let's read it along here. Okay. An extravagant spin-off drawn by none other than Boichi Sensei. My only job was supervising character dialogue, and it was a task I performed with gusto, okay? He goes on to say it was a what-if story, it is separate from the main Dr. Stone series, and it's basically like just Boichi having fun with it. So the only job Inagaki did here was supervise the dialogue to make sure that, like, Byakuya was, like, talking like Byakuya talked in, like, the actual manga, stuff like that. And, like, Senku also appears at the end of this, and Chrome does as well. So that's like the way that they spoke. But other than that, that was all Boichi, all right? So it's not Rei. It's not Rei. I would have loved Rei to be canon. It would have been really cool, but it's not, okay? And also, I guess it's probably a good thing, because that would mean in this context, Rei was Y-Man, and Rei was like evil, which I don't want Rei to be evil. Rei was awesome, right? Okay. So it's not Rei. Let's just throw that out right at the gate. As I said, an AI is probably part of this, but I don't think that's all of it. So you can't just say it was like Skynet the whole time. Like, it was Skynet, and that took over the world, and it's like, whatever. No, it might be part of this, but there's a mind behind this. Even if you want to say it's an AI, somebody had to build and program the AI. You know, and if that person is the same person that has the Medusa device, then they could just petrify themselves for the last 3,000 years, and they could still be alive just as everyone else is. So keep that in mind. As for that, which scientist would it be? I had an idea, and I saw some other people talking about this too, and I thought it would be really, really cool, but there's a few hiccups with it. I'm just saying, if it was true, the reaction on Senku's face and the reaction on Zeno's face would make perfect sense. And that is, what if Y-Man turns out to be a legitimate famous scientist from history? What if it turns out that Y-Man is actually Albert Einstein? What if it turns out Y-Man is like some famous scientist like Nikola Tesla or Isaac Newton or some shit? And you're like, Isaac Newton, he lived like hundreds of years ago. How does that even make sense? Well, I was thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, let's look at the Medusa device really quick here, okay? The Medusa device has been mentioned many, many times throughout Dr. Stone as beyond 21st century tech. When Joel was taking it apart and looking at it, he's like, I really can't make heads nor tails of this thing. Like, Joel, as an expert watchmaker, could figure out, like, where the battery was and generally how it worked. But he was like, the technology here is way beyond anything we had in the 21st century. Like, not just advanced a few years. They were talking like this is like centuries, maybe thousands of years ahead of what they were capable of in our time, right? So that means, like, I highly doubt this was just invented by somebody on Earth. Like, some genius scientist just invents this thing, okay? I like to think you gotta get AI or you gotta get aliens involved in order for this to make sense. Now, when I say aliens, I don't necessarily mean like aliens visiting Earth and just giving us the Medusa. Like they visit some scientist on Earth and be like, we have studied the Earth and we have learned you are the greatest scientist. We present to you this token. It is the petrification device. If you use it, you can eliminate all disease and injuries on your planet. That might be what it's originally intended for, the eponymous Dr. Stone, as it were. Maybe aliens from another world use this as like doctors, you know, basically to heal any wound, and they saw the Earth and they saw how we're coming along, and they went to the Earth and they presented this to the most intelligent scientist on the Earth, but then that scientist took it a different way and he's like, I could actually use this to petrify the entire planet, and then that's what they did. Okay, that's one possibility. The other possibility is it's not aliens giving us the Medusa, it's like alien technology. Maybe there was an alien spacecraft or something along the side of the Earth and it got destroyed. Maybe it like blew up or something, like an engine failure, and it crashed into the planet. And then in the wreckage, they found the Medusa device, you know, or a bunch of the Medusa devices. See, that's the thing. There was like literally millions, if not billions of these things that were dropped on the pyramid or created the pyramid in South America. So whatever it is, now I want to think it was definitely aliens because, oh man, okay, hold on a second. Let me think about something here. All right, remember that pyramid in South America? Would you say there's roughly about 7.8 billion Medusas in that pyramid? I know that's a really big number, but that was a really big fucking pyramid, okay? What if aliens visited the Earth and presented some random scientist, not some random scientist, but like the most intelligent scientist on Earth with a mountain of these things and was like, now, you know, you can have these petrification devices for every human, or at least told him how to make a petrification device, right? And then he built them and then went to the moon and then dropped them all on the planet? But like, it's like, that's the problem. Like, if this was the case, like some like scientist had these things like or mass produced them, like how would he have the time and the efforts and no one would notice to produce like mountains of these things and then travel to the moon? We've already established the Medusas can block radar signals, so maybe he used that. Because Wyman had to get to the moon somehow to drop all these things down on the Earth. So not just the fact that dropping these on the Earth went undetected, but the fact that, like, let's say it was the most brilliant scientist on the planet. If the most brilliant scientist on the planet just went missing one day and then went to the moon, I feel like people would have noticed that, right? So unless he faked his death or something, or this was something that happened a long time ago. Maybe aliens came down and picked up Albert Einstein, and they took him to the moon. And it's like, here's your base on the moon, Albert Einstein. Here's a bunch of petrification devices. And Albert Einstein, over the years, just went evil or something and dropped all of them on the planet. Not saying anything bad to Albert Einstein, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't think they're going to use, like, Albert Einstein or, like, Isaac Newton, like an actual scientist that lived in our world. I'm just using them as an example because when you think of, or Stephen Hawking, like, you think of a brilliant scientist, you think of Isaac Newton, you think of Einstein or Stephen Hawking or somebody. But, like, the equivalent of that in the Dr. Stone world, because Zeno is very intelligent, Senku's very intelligent, but there's probably, like, another scientist that's even more intelligent, but, like, he was never mentioned, he or she was never mentioned in the story up until now, so that's a little weird to make it like that, but I'm just trying to come up with ideas here. I'm just spitballing. There's also a theory I saw people talking about that it was actually Senku's dad or Senku's parents, you know, like, because Senku is super intelligent, and he went through that, like, Inagaki went to the lengths of saying that Byakuya was not Senku's biological dad, so it's like, all right, why would you do that? I mean, Byakuya and Senku are so much alike anyway, why would you bother having them not be biologically related? Because it works, you know? Maybe Inagaki did that just so it's like, well, then that would mean Senku would be also related to Kohaku and everybody in the village, and so you can't have romances then. So maybe that's the reason Inagaki said that. Like, oh yeah, they're not related biologically. Even though Senku even says in the story, like, it's been like 3,000 years since Byakuya, you know, started Ishigami Village. You know, so much time has passed by now. There's really no connection anymore, you know, between Senku and Kohaku and the villagers, even if they were blood related, right? But anyway, you know, like, the idea is maybe Senku's parents were just as intelligent as he was, if not smarter, and then they developed this somehow. I don't like to think that's the case, just because I feel like I feel like the idea, that twist of like, oh, it turns out it was the main character's parents the whole time. I feel like that's just a little bit too overdone and a little bit of the cliche. And I just feel we've already done like the other evil scientist thing with Zeno's character. So it's like, I wouldn't really prefer that. I kind of, at this point, honestly, the fact that he says Y-Man was you. Oh, what if... Okay, here's an idea. What if it was an AI that was like created by aliens or something, and the AI found like the most intelligent person on the planet and like replicated them as like an evil AI alien counterpart? And what if it actually is Senku? Like, what if he finds Y-Man and it is Senku, but it's like a robotic synthetic version of Senku or something like that? Like, aliens arrived on this planet and they scanned the entire world trying to find the most intelligent mind. And it was you, Senku. We replicated your mind. And now we are your greatest enemy. I mean, that's a bit of a cliche in its own right. Like, it's the main character as the main villain. Like, the evil half of Senku. But it's not the same thing. And it would still fall in line with, like, AI and, like, alien tech, maybe. I'm going to put my chips on that one right now. Y-Man is an evil AI synthetic alien form of Senku. I'm putting down my chips. I'm all in on this one. Let's go ahead and do this. All right? Well, anyway, yeah, that's the video. I'm going to stop here. I feel like I'm just going to ramble. This part plus the first part, this is going to be a long video, but thanks for watching it anyway. And so, yeah, I guess we'll find out. There's no break, so we'll find out this week when the chapter comes out, who Y-Man is. I am very excited for this. I mean, there's a lot of other really cool stuff going on right now in Shonen Jump, like One Piece and My Hero Academia, but, like, I'm extremely pumped on Y-Man's reveal in Dr. Stone right now, so I hope Inagaki doesn't tease us. I hope at the beginning of the next chapter it's just revealed who he is. So, yeah, thanks for watching the video, everybody. Keep on watching Dr. Stone and enjoy it while it lasts, because, like I said, it'll probably be ending this year, but I guess we're going to enjoy the ride while we have it. See ya, everybody. Signing out.